right, so today starts part 2 of our final exam review. We're starting it off by solving percent problems. There are 2 methods to solve percent problems. The first method is a proportion, A over B equals P over 100. The second, all right, so I'll just write that down. A over B equals P over 100. Or the second method is A equals P times B. In either situation, my keyword for A is, and my keyword for B is of, and P, of course, stands for the percentage, All right, so no matter what I'm solving for, A, B, or P, I can use either a proportion or the percent equation. Now, one thing you have to consider is if you use the percent equation, there's nothing in the equation that converts it. So what do you have to do to the percentage if you plug it into the equation? Anybody remember what happens to my percent? I have to change it to a decimal. In the proportion, it's already being divided by 100, so it does it for me. It's built in. But in the equation, it doesn't, so I've got to change it to a decimal. All right, so that's basically the general structure or setup. Now let's look at the first one. 45 is 60% of what number? So if we use the percent equation, A equals P times B, what's my A value? 45. What value do I plug in for P? 0.6. I have to plug in the decimal value for P, and then I don't know what B is. So how would I solve for B? How do I solve for B?
0.6.
Divide both sides by 0.6. B is 75. Okay? So if you use a proportion, it should have been 45 over B equals 60 over 100. Cross products divide, and you still should have got 75. All right, now that you've seen one done, either use the equation or the proportion to solve the second one. I'm going to use the proportion, all right, because I'm solving for percent. But either way, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and try to solve. So my proportion is A over B equals P over 100. I do my substitutions. 50 goes in for A or B? A. It goes in for A. 85 for B. I don't know P over 100. Now I'm going to do cross products. What's 50 times 100? What's 85 times P? 85P. So I'm going to write that down. Divide both sides by 85. P is about 59%. Did you get like 58 point and like a lot of crazy decimals? So you would just round it to the nearest percentage. All right. Any questions on percent problems? Okay, so on your final exam, you're also going to have a lot of terms. This is a matching section on your final. So I need you to take about 5 minutes, and I need you to look in the back of your book and try to fill in all of these definitions. Okay, so it's in the glossary in the very back of your book, the last few pages of your book. And you might remember some of these, right? Hopefully some of you do remember what's a complementary and a supplementary angle. What are some of these formulas? Area, circumference. The Pythagorean theorem you should remember, right? Okay, so go ahead and look in the back of your book and try to fill in some of these definitions. So working through this, complementary angle measures add up to what?
90.
90. Supplementary angle measures add up to?
180.
Area of a trapezoid, 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times the height. If you don't have this written down, you need to write it down right now. Area of a circle, A equals what? Pi r squared. Circumference of a circle depends if they give you diameter or radius. There's 2 different formulas that would work. Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Surface area of a cylinder, SA equals 2 pi RH plus 2 pi r squared. Volume of a cylinder, V equals pi r squared h. All right, give you just a minute to finish copying these down, and then we'll move on. So now I'm going to give you some complementary and supplementary angles. I want you to tell me if this is the first angle measure, what is its complementary measure and supplementary measure? Okay? Yes, what is its complementary and supplementary measure given the angle measures of 68 degrees and 94 degrees? Complementary measure is going to be 22 degrees. The supplementary measure is going to be 112 degrees. 94 degrees, not possible for complementary. It's more than 90. I can't have a negative angle measure. Did y'all get not possible? You remember that? And then supplementary is going to be 86 degrees. So those are my answers. All right, any questions on complementary and supplementary? All right, so now let's move on to the next topic that you'll see on your final, and that's solving equations. When I'm solving these equations, what do you see that's attached to your variable? An exponent is attached to the variable. So let's see who can remember. This is from chapter 11. All right, who can remember what we do to solve equations involving exponents? Go ahead and solve right on your paper. Just try to solve the first one. X squared minus 4 equals 21. So what did I do to both sides on the first equation? What do I do to both sides? I need to add 4 to both sides. What do I get? X squared equals 25. What do I do now? Take the square root of both sides. What is my answer? No. Your answer is not 5.
No, it's positive, negative 5.
It is positive and negative 5, and here's why. Because if you plug it back into the original, okay, yes, 5 squared minus 4, yes, is 21. But negative 5 squared minus 4 is also 21. The positive and negative version of that number are both solutions, which is why it's both positive and negative. All right? So this is your proof. You do not have to write this part on your final. But that's just me showing you why your answer is what it is. Go ahead and solve the second one now that you've seen the first one done. So what do we do to both sides first? Subtract 9 from both sides. Square root it. Did you write positive, negative? 7. Positive. Who got it right? Positive, negative 7. Okay, good. Y equals perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Because I know that it's kind of like reading backwards. That's totally fine as long as you keep everything on one side, the correct side. All right, last thing we're going to solve today is finding the unknown leg length. Does anybody remember what this is? It starts with a P. What do I have to use to solve? The Pythagorean theorem. What is the Pythagorean theorem? You wrote it down. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So make your substitutions and solve for the unknown side. That's going to tie straight into the slide that we just did. Okay, with finding the square root of the equation and all of that. All right, so just keep that in mind as you're making your substitutions and solving. So we make our substitutions into the formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. 9 squared plus 11 squared equals C squared. What's 9 squared plus 11 squared? Thank you. Very good. 202. Okay, so this is my answer. I'm done. 202.
No.
Right?
No.
What do I have to do? I got to square root both sides and round to the nearest tenth, about 14.2. Who got 14.2?
How is it 202?
202 because 9 squared plus 11 squared is 202. You might just have a small typo somewhere. All right, so now this one's a little different. What am I solving for on the second one?
A.
I'm solving for A now. I don't know A, so A squared plus 8 squared equals 12 squared. What do I do now?
You do what you can.
Yeah, I evaluate each exponent. 144. Now what do I do to both sides? Subtract. And A squared equals 80.
No.
Yeah, A squared equals 80, but is that my answer? No. What do I do to both sides? Square root it. Did you get about 8.9?
Okay.
Roughly? Okay, so that's going to wrap up part 2 of our final exam review. Tomorrow we will review chapters 12 and 13, and that'll be it. All right, so that's it.